The booze world is full of smoke and mirrors.
You pull out.
Good luck. We know in life that the what is important, but the why is always the trigger.
Were you ever on the verge of giving up?
God, yeah.
Yeah?
If I sell you X, I need to give you some money because selling you a great product isn't enough. Waffling, Alex, shut the fuck up. Right, let's do this again. Cut.
Hi, and welcome to the Session Podcast, the home of spirited conversation. I'm your host, Brad Crompton, and I'm the co-founder of Session Spirits by Spirit of Bermondsey. I'm pleased to welcome Alex Wolpert, the founder of the East London Liquor Company. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brad. Great to be here.
So, Alex is the founder of the East London Liquor Company, the exciting and vibrant drinks brand out of the East End of London. So I believe it's about 10 years almost now when you first started the brand, right?
We're just over 9. So yeah. Be 10 next year.
Are you planning for your big 10th year anniversary yet?
Haven't thought that far ahead yet.
Well, I think you've got the place for it, haven't you? The place just on Bow Wharf.
Yes.
So I think, I've been there before. I've walked past it as well. It's an incredible. Is it a listed building?
It's locally listed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lovely space.
Yeah. Well, I think you can definitely have a big party there, couldn't you?
Yeah.
So obviously I know you and I know the brand. I've been to your bars, I've drunk the product, I've done my research with you beforehand, of course. I'd love to hear how you explain the brand and what you stand for and where you came from.
Of course, yeah. So, I've worked in the on-trade for many years, since my kind of early 20s, early to mid 20s. The kind of my love of booze has been there for almost 20 years. But I think as a bartender, there was no real independent booze offering out there. The independent piece, on one hand, of course, refers to the ownership of the brand and the business, but actually also, probably more importantly, it refers to a way of doing business and a way of making liquid, which to me felt sort of quite lacking. There was a sort of lack of transparency really around making liquid and making the liquid the most important thing, not the check that you cut to make sure the listing goes live, not the support, not all the other stuff, but actually how can you make booze locally, which leads with liquid being the important part of the equation.
And I imagine about 10 years ago as well, that even more so than now, the big boys really own the market.
Yeah, you could argue the big boys are trying to dominate it even more now because the economy's, not in a great place. And so actually it's more important for them to hang on to their listings. I think the big boys will always play that unimaginative game of offering what they can, which is money. I think the feedback we get is that it's refreshing that there are booze brands like us that are out there saying, we can offer other things. Of course the liquid is excellent. Of course there's an element of provenance and quality, and you can come and watch us make the liquid, and you can come and make the liquid with us, and there's that element to it. But there's also the element of the values behind which we very sort of proudly position ourselves as being liquid led. That's quite a powerful thing when you think about, we get up and we sweat and we breathe and we dream good booze. Like, that is the North Star for us. And of course, with the gins and the vodka, you work on something. We spent 6 months developing our gin recipes when we started, and then we locked them in. Well, we've got this liquid we think is excellent, and that's going to be, we want people to know that it's consistent. But with the whiskey, it's this wonderfully evolving thing where the whiskeys have just got better. And, when someone says to me, you trying to replicate last year's rye because it was really tasty, I can say, well, no, actually, this year's rye is a little bit different. And it's different because of these reasons, because we are leading our exploration of liquid by flavor. And that's the kind of most important thing. And we're a young whiskey distillery. We also make gin. We're a young distillery, full stop. We're not even 10 yet. So for us to even contemplate the idea that we've got a liquid that we've nailed and that we want to replicate year on year would be monumentally arrogant, and we're not there. So it's really kind of just having this ability to play and evolve the liquid. And I think that lands because people understand that it comes from a place of no ego, but just what do we do that improves and develops the liquid.
And you mentioned you're quite a young distillery.
Yeah.
I read that you're the first gin, vodka and whiskey distillery in over a century.
In East London, yeah, I believe that is true, yes. It is true. I think for us, it's very much forward looking. It's what does it mean to make whiskey and gin in London in 2023? What makes us relevant? How can we maintain our relevance? And particularly at a time now where everyone's getting squeezed left, right, and center, it's tough out there. How do we make something that resonates with people in a way that's meaningful? And whether that's a bartender making a Manhattan or a Boulevardier, or that's a consumer at home pouring themselves a drink after a Thursday night, what is it that keeps people coming back to us? We know in life that the what is important, but the why is always the trigger. So it's not what they're drinking, but why, and why do they come back to us? So that's the bit that needs to resonate.
So let's talk about the how as well, because obviously the idea of dreaming about a drinks brand is one thing. Putting the steps into play to start the journey is a second thing. But to consistently do that and build the brand that you have over the last 9 or 10 years is obviously a huge achievement. I'd love to learn more about your creation story. How did you get started on your journey?
So I was doing the ops and for a bar group called Barworks, when I sort of turned around to the my bosses at the time and said, I'd like to build a gin and whiskey distillery. Do you want in? And they went, yeah, sure. And it was kind of that simple at the time. Had I known the pain and what was actually what it entailed, I probably would have thought twice. But with ignorance comes a degree of freedom to make silly mistakes and to make silly decisions. And so we started off very small, just developing liquid for 6 months while we got labels and bottles and everything else in play. 2014 in January, we signed the lease on the premises on the 14th of January 2014. 6 months later, we were distilling. 4 or 5 weeks later, we had product that we were sort of sending out to the local bars that we had a relationship with, and it was really sort of humble beginnings. Really, I mean, we were doing a few hundred bottles a month to start with, but we really took the time to we didn't actually sell any product to any wholesalers for, I think, probably 6 months from when we started distilling. So we started distilling in June, so maybe 3 or 4 months. Took until we were really convinced that we had the consistency bit down. And it was very much led by the fact that we just wanted to be able to be an on-trade brand to start with. And what does that mean to be a bartender's favorite? How do we provide something that is liquid led, but also is practical, lightweight wine bottle that we used? People are talking about removing weight in glass. Now we did that. That was part of the plan before we even signed the lease, to have a lightweight wine bottle, because we realized that was an easy hack for speed of service and not knackering people's arms when they're pulling something out of a speed rail, 100 times a night, 1,000 times a night. And I think when we started, the look and feel of the brand was very different. We were mindful of the fact that we were in a kind of old paint and glue factory, and there was the design route we went down was very much a kind of nod to our kind of building and the heritage of the space we were in. And over the first 4.5 years, we kind of got lumped into the craft space, and the C word is something we've never used at East London from the beginning.
That would be quite a strange soundbite, because the C word is used a lot over there.
Yes, I'm talking about craft. So we've never used it, and I think we just got lumped into that bubble. I think we always saw, as we grew, we realised that the kind of independent spirits movement was really growing, and most independent spirits producers were happy to refer to themselves as craft. I've never understood what it means. I have seen and see a lot of brands use it as a crutch to justify high price tags, rather than to actually give the consumer or the bartender more insight into the product, which I think is just sloppy marketing.
Do you think as well it tries to give an impression of independence?
Yes and no. Yeah, maybe it does. I think it's, if you can quantify, you're doing a better job. And so the quantification element of it to me is really important. How do you articulate your brand in a way which makes it transparent? The booze world is full of smoke and mirrors, secret recipes, old recipes that have been handed down, things that the secret ingredient here that we don't talk about, our yeast strain, this and that. There's so much smoke and mirrors. I think everything we do, we are transparent about. There's nothing you can't ask me. There really isn't anything you can't ask me, because I think that's such a strong position to hold, that there is nothing that is not part of that that impulse to make great liquid. And so you should really be able to talk about it from every step of the way. It's from what yeast strains to fermentation time to which botanicals to, I always tell the story in the beginning when I was running the tours. Someone said, "Oh, you've left," one of the distillers had left their Moleskine open and there was all the recipe, there was a botanical bill there. And someone said, "Alex, you've left the thing out." I was like, "Yeah, that's okay." Like, yeah, but I was like, "Well, the botanicals are on the bottle already." "Yeah, but the weights are there." "Well, fine." She said, "Well, what if I take a picture?" I was like, "Well, take a picture." And you could see the group kind of, really kind of see the cogs going. And someone else said, "But what if we copy the recipe?" I was like, "Well, that's a massive compliment. You're going to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds building a distillery to copy our recipe. That's great. That means our distillers are ninja distillers, right?" Which I know already, but that's a compliment, right? And there was a sort of pause. And I said, "Obviously, if you call it East London, I'll sue you." It was a joke. But if you copy the recipe, well, that's kind of great, right? That's a wonderful, like, doffing of the cap to the fact that you think what we're doing is great. And I think that degree of transparency and openness doesn't exist naturally in the booze world. People do not, that is not the natural, like, resting place of booze brands.
And you find that builds trust as well?
Yeah.
Customers.
Yeah, I think it does. I think, I think people want to know that they're let into everything and that they can ask questions, and, have a lot of bartenders coming in every week to do tastings and tours. If they're really keen, they can come back and do a brew day with us. They can make whiskey, they can make gin. And they see what we do. Like, they are then part of the production team for the day. Like, they're kind of properly inserted into that. They get wellies and dungarees and off they go, right? So I just can't imagine operating any other way. And of course, there are many brands that do, but for me, it just seems like such a deal breaker if you're going to make something, that you have that degree of transparency.
Yeah, no, I love that. I really do. And I feel it almost captures the essence as well of the East End. It's neighborhood, it's in it together. It's that kind of that community vibe.
Yeah.
Which is a really great transition, which I didn't try and orchestrate at all, into my next question. So your tagline is named after the place and soaked in its spirit.
Yes.
Fucking love that. No, it's so cool. But I mean, how do you integrate yourself into the East End?
So I don't think we've ever tried to integrate ourselves. I think we have just been, and the being and the growing as a business in the community naturally means that we're lucky enough to be part of where we are from. And that means one thing to one person and something else to someone else. And I think that's a personal thing. I don't think we've ever tried to do something. And I think we've just been very mindful of what it means to be in East London. I've lived in Hackney for over 20 years, and there is a dynamism and fun and creativity to the area, although it's changed a lot in 20 years, that is infectious. And we want that in how we operate, how we, our tone of voice and how we operate, and how we, we've just launched this, well, not just, we launched a year ago, we launched this 10-litre Jerry refill program. It's the fastest growing part of our business. We've taken over 40,000 bottles out of our supply chain by talking to bars and restaurants and hotels and festivals about that plastic is not the devil. We have people on Instagram saying, "Isn't plastic wrong? Why aren't you using glass? It's more recyclable." And people just don't understand that the carbon needed to recycle glass or make glass compared to if you pick HDPE plastic, for example, there's no comparison. I think it's about kind of owning a tone of voice and a way of being which feels right, which feels authentic, which feels for the team. And we have a pretty open policy with our Instagram account, for example, where our head of sales or head of marketing or head of whiskey can just jump on and chat and do a story and do stuff, and no one knows who it is because it's of the same, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
And that's quite fun because it means it's not, oh, you can tell so-and-so's on Instagram today, because you can't. It's just kind of, yeah.
Same vibe.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick break from the podcast to let you know about our drinks brand, Session Spirit. We've created the perfect spirit that allows you to enjoy the best of both worlds. It's a 25% spirit made with London dry gin. Why did we create a sessionable spirit? Well, it allows you to reduce your hangovers and make a healthier choice while still enjoying an award-winning, full-tasting gin. It's also half the calories, vegan, gluten-free, and contains no carbs or sugars. Head over to www.sessionspirit.co.uk, grab your bottle and get £5 off with code podcast5. Okay, great. Let's get back to the pod. Okay, great. I want to jump into the quick fire deeper dive
Yep.
section now.
Time to play deep dive.
So I'm going to ask you a few deeper questions about yourself, your lessons, and
Sure. Yeah.
see what kind of wisdom we can pull out of
Good luck.
it. I think you've got a lot to offer, and I think this will be a really good section. We're going to start heavy though.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your biggest regret in business?
Oh. Probably knowing things on an instinctive level and taking too long to act on them. I would also probably say not raising enough money often enough. I think, 9 years in as an indie brand, there comes a point when acting and behaving and operating like a startup becomes, there's so much clamor for space in the booze world that we always struggle because we have zero marketing budget for 9 years. And it slowly starts to, you kind of realize that you need more to maintain momentum, I guess.
I guess as the snowball gets bigger, you need more oomph to push it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What would be your advice to people who want to follow in your footsteps and build their own drinks brand or a company or brand in general in today's world?
Oof.
I know you started off 9-10 years ago. The world
Yeah.
and the industry was probably very different
Yeah.
back then. Things have changed. Things are, I guess, they're probably a bit tougher in these days,
I would say
especially
so, yeah.
post-COVID and Brexit. Not to put a disservice to the work you've done, obviously, beforehand.
Well, it wasn't easy then, but I think
Yeah.
doing it now would, I would hope no one would follow in our footsteps per se, because I think people should follow their own path. I guess that's really the important bit. But in terms of building a booze brand or just building anything, I think it's always going to be about the people, hiring people that do what you as a founder does, but better professionally, quickly, and having a really, really strong team. I got into a bit of trouble because not in trouble, trouble's a bit of a exaggeration, but I said flippantly once, I think there might have been a journalist present, I said we could be making flip-flops, it doesn't matter, it's the team that counts. And I kind of got a jab in my elbow. I said, you can't say that, whiskey and gin brand, it's really important you make whiskey and gin. I was like, yeah, of course, fuck, I know that, but what trumps the what is who you're doing it with, because we have such a great team, not only in sales and marketing and in the making of the liquid, operationally, bar, there's every bit that works well, and of course that needs finessing and developing and modifying and changing over time. But ultimately, our retention of core team is amazingly high. Our head of sales has been with us 7 years, going on 8 years. Our ops director's been with us since the beginning. Great talent, I guess, who take the brand and then give it its own momentum. And I think that's the thing, is there's a lot of fetishizing of founders in the current day and age, which I find uncomfortable. A founder is only as good as the team and the product is only as good as the team. And actually, I hate titles. When people ask me what I do, I just say I work at East London. I feel like that's the honest bottom line. I think you can't. I think if there's that going back to your question about that one thing, it's really about finding people who you can really give them complete freedom. It's a real privilege to be able to let people run whole departments without me meddling. And meddling is a really bad habit, and I really try to not stick my fingers in everything.
Yeah, and I think that almost transcends just the workplace too. They always say you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, or you're only as good as the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I think both internally and externally from a working environment, the people who you are with all the time and who you trust and who you work with will shape your future for you as well. So we've looked at what your biggest regret was, which is obviously an absence of action and what you haven't done. But what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned from action you have taken?
Wow. Biggest lesson.
Yeah, we're getting deep now. I did warn you.
The compassion goes a long way in every sense, both ways, but it goes a long way in terms of dealing with situations that are difficult. I should probably trust my gut more. Oh, I had a third one. Oh yeah. Advice. When you ask for advice, even when you pay for advice, doesn't mean you have to take it.
The last one I like, because they say advice is nostalgia packaged up and resold.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great big burden of when you ask for advice, and even more when you pay for it to then take it. And there's this wonderful freedom of going, I asked, I've paid, and now fuck it. I think it's, Malcolm Gladwell speaks really brilliantly about snap decisions or gut decisions, and that they're not really gut. They're built up of thousands of hours and days and years of expertise, which then allows you to make snap judgments. And they look snap, they look gut, but actually they're rooted in an intrinsic understanding of the situation and what the right decision to make is. And that's not the same as making an impulse decision, but making a gut decision based on that expertise.
Yeah, I
And
guess
so,
impulse you don't trust. It's almost
yeah,
a guess, but
exactly.
gut feeling you trust.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting is I should probably trust myself more because there's more years of being in it. You know what I mean?
Were you ever on the verge of giving up at any point?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. And it feels like it's getting much harder. And yeah, you know, it's yeah.
What made you carry on?
I mean, just fucking stubbornness, a belief that what we do is meaningful enough on some level for it to work. And just because I don't know any better, you know, just ignorance, maybe just it's not, I'm not sure if it's even blind faith. I think, you know, I'm pretty fucking stubborn. I think if you're not having those kind of mini crises every so often, then I would have alarm bells.
Yeah, take more risks.
Well, it's not just the risk. Are you aware of the risks? Or if you're not questioning yourself and what you're doing, then what sort of self-awareness have you got?
Okay. I'm learning loads here. It's great. And when was the first time you thought to yourself, this might actually work?
I don't think I've ever thought that.
No?
No, I don't. I think there's always a problem, or there's always some kind of challenge that, you know, look, we make whiskey and gin. So it's not just as simple as saying we'll sell, I don't know, 20,000 cases of gin or 50,000 cases of gin. And from the profit of that, we will spend on sales and marketing. We're going to spend more because we want to lay down whiskey stock. We want to build a pipeline of whiskey over a long period of time. So it's not, you know, we've been investing in the business every year for almost every year since we started. And that is a pressure because I don't have the means. So I'm fundraising. And over the last few years, we've been very lucky to get an amazing group of shareholders who are supportive and get what we're doing and want to be present and help and believe in what we're doing. That takes time, you know. Fundraising particularly takes a huge amount of focus and time.
Do you find you're doing more of that nowadays than you are getting involved in the actual distillery?
It changes. Sometimes when you know, if and when we raise, then it does take a huge amount of focus. But you know, I'm out selling. I have accounts. You know, we have a back end CRM system where we have divvy up our accounts. I have a group of accounts that I look after directly. You know, I look after our export sales. I was in Berlin 2 weeks ago with our new importer. The bit I love most is, apart from making drinks with our booze and reminding myself how good what our team make is definitely getting out and spreading the word. And we were, I was in Berlin at the bar show a couple of weeks ago, and every night we finished at 6 every night after the importers had taken us out for like a local schnitzel or whatever it was, which was amazing. By the way, I just had a bottle of rye in my inside pocket, and I just went to accounts and I poured whiskey and I talked to bartenders, and that's the fun bit, you know.
What would you say is your biggest achievement so far?
Still going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that though, because then every day you wake up and you think it's an extra day, and every day is now an achievement.
Yeah. People ask us if we were doing an opening party. I was like, fuck no, we're going to do a party at the end of year one, because we'll as long as the lights are still on, that's the reason to have a party. Anyone can open a business. It's keeping it going that's the challenge. And yeah, it's, you know, we live in an age where paying human beings to make something is fucking expensive, and there's magic in it, and that's why we do it. But it's also not cheap. And you know, the current government and the current political scenario and the current economic scenario is geared towards a very, very small group of very wealthy people, and there is no support or real kind of understanding of how to foster startups and entrepreneurial efforts in any way, really. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty pathetic when you think about what is out there, and you know the kind of global scene, the horrors that are going on currently across the world don't help. But actually, I think what my kids will be, or my kids' kids will be learning about in their history lessons in a long time to come, won't be COVID. It'll be Brexit as being something that disrupted things in a kind of quite a serious way.
Yeah, I know a few brands who were quite successful, quite prominent, who had to close doors.
Yeah,
just because they used overseas products and ingredients and resources, and they couldn't anymore. Yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah.
If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh God. Okay. Enjoy the process, and stop and acknowledge the wins. I mean, the whole. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to go, oh, we just did that thing and it was great, or you know, we just won a new importer in Germany. Well, that's amazing, but there is no amazing, because you're doing, you know, you're on the stand at 11 or 12 o'clock, and then at 7 o'clock when you're out, you know, you're doing another 3 or 4 hours of walking around the accounts, then you're in bed, and then you're up, and it's like it's constantly go. So it's, you know, I try and keep my Fridays meeting free. I fail some weeks, but I try and keep my Fridays meeting free to catch up, but also to have a little bit of thinking time. And I might do 3 Fridays in a row where I forget that I keep them free for thinking time because X, Y, and Z happens. And I'll have one, I'm like, oh yeah, shit, this is the day. This is this thing that I've been trying to do. And you have to sort of stop and put your phone on airplane mode and just sit on a bench or wherever the fuck I am and just go, okay, wait a minute. Is everything all right? What's going on? You know, and that's really important. And I haven't done that ever for 9 years. That's a relatively new thing.
That's really cool. And you've spoken a lot today about whiskey. So I'm guessing, are you more of a whiskey man?
No, I love gin too. I think I love a good Negroni. So, no, I love gin as well. I think you know, yeah, I mean, I brought a bottle of each. It kind of epitomize the two bits of the business, really. You know, you've got something which you can make relatively quickly, which is used in a kind of volume environment where, you know, bars can make Negronis or, you know, gin and tonics, whatever it is, and there's a degree of like appetite for it. Like people have 2 or 3 gin and tonics. I think the pace of whiskey consumption is very different, and it evokes a kind of emotional response from drinkers, which is always different from white spirits or from gin and vodka. So to have that tension between an emotional thing, a drink, and a more day-to-day thing is an interesting one to have, because, you know, we don't make gin to cash flow our whiskey. We make gin because we believe, as a independent distillery in London, we'd be mighty fools not to make gin. It's like integrated into the bar scene as being a core volume booze product, you know, and it's a great drink. I mean, a gin and tonic is the national drink, right? Or close to. I don't actually know what the actual national drink is, but whether it's the official or the unofficial one, it, you know, there's a, you know, you go anywhere in the UK, you get a gin and tonic. And, you know, I mean, yes, we've had the gin boom. Yes, the bubble has burst and all that stuff. But I think where we sit and where our positioning is of excellent local booze that's affordable, that resonates. People don't think they're getting ripped off. And I think that resonates because people just realize there is a ethical margin decision made about at what price can we sell this and still be, you know, and you know, I get the ambition is, you know, every cupboard in England has a bottle of our gin in the back of it, because we want it to be the everyday gin. We don't want it to be the special gin that people only drink on their dad's birthday or their baby's christening or whatever it is. You know, it is the everyday thing, and you know, neither do we want to promote alcoholism. But
if you will drink every day,
make it in East London. Yeah, if you're gonna have a gin and tonic on Monday because you had a crappy day at work, then great, have it. You know, I think that's the point. You know, we always say to our sales team, you know, if you walk into a bar and the bottle's behind the bar and it's dusty, then we're failing. There should be no bottle because it's sold out, or it should be half empty and clean and used and part of the fabric of the bar's behavior.
Higher or lower?
I've got 3 higher or lower questions for you.
Okay.
And they're all based on the drinks industry.
Mm-hmm.
All quite interesting, I think.
Cool.
So the UK drinks industry was worth more or less than £40 billion in 2022.
More.
was more. It wasn't. Yeah.
Got a good poker face.
Yeah. So it actually rose 6%,
Okay.
from 46 billion in 2021 to just below 50 billion in 2022. And they're actually forecasting the industry to reach just over 60 billion in 2026.
But yeah,
So it's growing. It's coming back.
good.
Which I
Good.
think
Good
is
to hear.
good. Okay. What percentage of consumers who buy alcohol are prompted by their visual wow factor? Is it higher or lower than 30%?
Higher.
It is high. Theme here, isn't there? It's 31%. So it really shows the benefit of having a strong brand.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible for an alcohol brand to have a pretty shitty bottle but still do well?
This is not a high or low question.
No.
Being facetious asshole. I mean, no. I think you know that. I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but decision making on a retail shelf, we're talking milliseconds or seconds. I think it's something less than 3 seconds, like 2.7 seconds or something. Don't quote me, but it's an infinitesimal amount of time that people are making decisions on, and they're sure as hell not trying it before they're buying it. You know, in the volume retail supermarket, grocery thing.
In the sensory overload that is the shelves.
Yeah, and you've got unfortunately, you do need to think about the look and feel of the brand. What I would say though is that if you, as we did, really focused and still focus, our biggest customer is the on-trade. It still is, 9 years on. Then you really circumnavigate that, because if you can bring the bar on board with the brand, consumer never sees the bottle if it's in a speed rail. It's one of our failings as a brand, is that we focused on winning the pouring deal. We want to be the gin, vodka, and rum in the speed rail. So anyone who orders a gin and tonic or a vodka Coke or a rum and ginger, it's an East London product that's used, because that's the aim, right? That we quite often forget to go, well, hang on a minute, can you put a bottle of what we're doing on the back bar? And they're like, oh yeah, but those are the back bar spirits. I'm like, but the whole ethos is, our spirits are affordable, accessible, and excellent. So you should be proud about the spirits that are in your speed rail. Oh yeah, of course. And then they go on the back bar. But the kind of the received old school method is always, what's in the speed rail is one thing, and then we put the fancy pants stuff on the back shelf. So it's really a double war. It's a battle to win the account against the big brands that are paying to play. And then it's reminding the bar that they've got something really bloody good in the rail, and they should be having, and please, can you put it on the back bar, please? This is a massive segue, but it comes back to your question about branding. If you can bring the bar on and they buy into what we're offering, then the customer doesn't see the bottle necessarily. And if it's a busy bar and they can't see behind the bar, and the bar is wonderful and putting the product on the shelf as we would like, they still won't see the branding. They might see East London on the menu, but they don't see the brand. So they are being led and influenced by flavour. If they order a Negroni, it tastes horrible, they won't order another one. If they order a gin martini and it's disgusting, they'll ask for a different gin. So in the on-trade, which is the kind of the joy and the magic of it, in the on-trade, liquid leads, because you're being served a drink. You're not judging your choice based on what the bottle looks like. That's not why we launched in the on-trade, but I'm thinking about it now. The brand building element in the on-trade is not led primarily by look and feel. It's led by liquid. That's not to say that there aren't people in the on-trade who list with their eyes, but I think nowadays the quality of bars and bartenders across the UK is just being pushed all the time.
Mm.
I was in Leeds last month, and there were some amazing new places. Nottingham, Leicester, Bristol, Cardiff, Glasgow. I mean, there's such a great spread of quality places that we, we've got a lot to be proud of in terms of how the hospitality industry is, despite the hammering it's getting on every level. It'll be business rates next year. Duty this summer, every step the government can put wrong, they seem to be relishing in it. So it's going to be tough. Forgot we're on high or low.
Yeah.
Just waffling. Alex, shut the fuck up. Just say it. It's fine.
What percentage of consumers agree that the environmental impact of alcohol brands is a concern? Is it higher or lower than 30%?
Lower.
It is lower. Yeah. Only just though. So, well, it's kind of lower. So it's 29% of alcohol drinkers are concerned about the environment and how alcohol brands are interacting with the environment, right? However, if you look at the drinkers aged 18 to 24, that then shoots up to 54%.
But that's on average, 29%. Good. That should be going up. Yep. Great.
Yeah, I think that will rise over time as well.
Yeah.
And you've introduced Project Refill as well,
Yes.
haven't you? Which aligns with that.
So you can ask my age, and you are. Do you care? Yeah, Project Refill. It really resonates. It's been doing phenomenally well. So Project Refill is a 10-liter HDPE plastic, which is curbside recyclable, the most widely recycled plastic in the UK. So to date, a year on, we've taken over 41,000 bottles out of our supply chain by offering HDPE plastic jerrys. Quite a few forward-thinking wholesalers are now listing them, and the bar orders a 10-liter jerry. They refill their bottles at the bar. HDPE plastic is not the devil. It's not. It's wide. It's the most widely recycled plastic in the UK. It's very carbon light to make and to recycle. The relative number of bottles, just over 14 bottles in glass, is a huge increase in carbon to not only make that glass but also to recycle it. So it's, we spent a long time working on what the vessel would be and what it would be made out of. But I think what we kind of realized is there's enough crap out there already. We don't want to keep making new stuff. We want to pick a material that is made widely, with as little carbon impact as possible, which could be recycled most easily. And a lot of bars pay for their recycling. So, you can take the 10-liter jerry, you can squeeze all the air out of it. It looks like it's the size of a generous focaccia or whatever. It's like a sort of that sort of size, and you just squeeze the crap out of it, and you screw the lid back on, and it's flat and it doesn't weigh anything. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, not only in the booze world, about recipe and ingredient and heritage, but it's also a lot of smoke and mirrors about sustainability and about what does it mean to be environmentally conscious. And we're on the pathway of doing our B Corp. It's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of money. We're not there yet, but we want to do it properly. In the meantime, we can do things in a quick and agile way which has a huge impact. To say to our customers, to say to our shareholders, to say to our colleagues, and to generally be able to hold ourselves accountable to, in 12 months, taking 41,000 bottles out of our supply chain. You can't greenwash that. That just is. We've taken out a phenomenal amount of glass out of our supply chain, and people get it. It resonates. People understand that it's, people are getting more educated about which plastics are recyclable, which are not, how they're made. And yeah, it's making a big difference.
I'd love to see some sort of some doctored picture to see how big 41,000 bottles really is.
That's a great idea, actually. We should have a
big pyramid of bottles, and then you next to it, and just being like,
yeah,
that's how fucking many bottles we've taken off.
Yeah,
that'd be great. So we spoke briefly before the podcast, and I asked you what your biggest pain point, or my God, I'm gonna have to try and rephrase this because I can't get the word out at all. We spoke about your biggest irk currently in the industry.
Yeah.
Well, what is that? Tell me. Tell me again.
Tell me again. I guess it's just the transactional element of the pay-to-play bit, which we come up against.
For those who don't know what the pay-to-play is,
it's and just to be really clear, and like to really kind of own this degree of transparency, which I've been banging on about already. Of course, we support our customers too. And that takes a variety of forms. I think what makes it difficult for us, and maybe it's a subjective irk, not an objective one, because it hampers our growth because we come up against it a lot. But that very much is that the big booze brands are paying customers to take their product. Listing fees, listing fees is something that we really, that's just not an arena where we have budget for. We can support on bottles and cases and how that works. But really it makes it the barrier to entry. And people always talk about the barrier to entry to whiskey being high because you need to have a lot of cash to lay down a lot of liquid. But actually the barrier to entry generally is high anyway when you're distilling anything, because if you want listings, quite often the conversation is then, well, what are you giving me? Like, well, we're not giving you anything. We're selling you a product. You're paying for the product, and then you have a great product. But the culture has been for the last few decades is, if I sell you X, I need to give you some money because selling you a great product isn't enough. And I find that difficult to stomach.
It really is the old boys club, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one way of doing business, and I think, you know, it's not that we don't support our customers in many different ways. You know, we're a WSET accredited educating center, so we do WSET Spirits Level 2. It's a worldwide recognized spirits training. We offer incentives for bartenders. We do all sorts of other things as well as the more traditional support. But I think when big booze brands are cutting, you know, 5-figure checks to take us out because they want the deal, you know, that becomes, well, it's just not a level playing field. But I mean, it is what it is.
So one thing we always try and do is we ask our guests to bring a quote or to share a quote which means a lot to them.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that they've always carried around with them, something that they've learned recently, but something they can share with our listeners who, you know, it's almost like, what would Alex always say in this situation?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, that you'd have to ask my team. What would Alex always say? I don't know what I would say. I mean, I got great advice early on, and I always remember. When people ask me this, I remember this, and maybe I don't remember it in my day to day as much as I should. But it's very much like, you know, whether you're in year 1, 10, or year 20, if you can hold the thought that no one knows you fucking exist, then you'll never take your brand and your positioning and your momentum and growth for granted, and that there'll always be a striving to improve how you talk about what you do. So yeah, always remember, no one knows you exist. If that's your baseline starting point, then there will be no complacency. I think that's pretty good advice. Yeah,
that's cool. I'll share mine with you. So the only time success comes before work, it's in the dictionary.
That's quite cool. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that one's fairly obvious.
I've not heard that before. Yeah,
you have to kind of put the work in
to
get the success. And even if you get lucky, you won't keep getting lucky. You have to keep putting the work in. To your point before, you mentioned that, you know, you might get a win and it feels great for a short time, but then it's back on the grind. It's back moving, back putting things in place. Yeah, I think for me, it's just a case of don't become complacent.
Yeah.
Keep putting the work in, keep showing up.
Yeah.
And keep striving to take the next step, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for doing the right thing consistently over a long period of time. Nothing beats consistency, basically. So
thank you for tuning in today on the Session podcast. Alex, any final words from you? So where can we buy your spirit? When's your bar open? What's coming up next?
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Our bar is at the distillery just down the road in Beowulf, 10-minute walk up from Mile End Tube. Just go online, actually. We've got next day delivery on our website. Everything's there. And we've just launched some delicious new whiskies and gins, and a new gin, and whiskey. So yeah, there's keep your eyes peeled on our Instagram. All the new product launches are on there first. And there will be at least one more exciting festive whiskey drop in December. So yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, rate our show 5 stars, or go ahead and subscribe so you're the first to know when we release another episode like this. And if you know anyone who might like this too, be sure to share this episode with them so they can enjoy it as well. We're a new podcast, so your support is really appreciated.